This is Jed Distler, and welcome to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. A listener wrote to me asking if I could comment about the pianist Earl Wild and pick one of his recordings to recommend. And the problem is there's so many fantastic recordings with Earl Wild that you're just spoiled for choice. He was such a great pianist. He lived from 1915 until 2010, and I was privileged to have met him on several occasions. Once we got together for an extensive interview, and we really seemed to hit it off, and he was incredibly forthcoming with information. He never held back his opinions, and I think he enjoyed saying outlandish things about sacred cows, and I do have to admit that I egged him on, and I encouraged him to say all kinds of scandalous things. But he was a musician who took his work seriously, and he remained open and curious about everything in the music world. He packed a lot of musical experience and life lessons into his 94 years on this planet. And I think he did some of his best playing in his 80s. He even said so himself. He was playing at full capacity with more mastery and more depth and more everything, well into his 90th year. And the solo disc that I want to talk about came out in 2003 to mark his 88th birthday. And I remember when I reviewed this originally, it just blew me away. I thought, wow, how wonderful and alive his playing is and how fresh his interpretations are. I'm talking about a release on the Ivory Classics label, Earl Wild's Recital at 88. He actually was 87 at the time of the recording sessions, but 88 years old, 88 keys on the piano. I guess that makes for better publicity. But let me run down the contents for you. This is just a wonderful disc. The opening selection is Earl Wild's transcription of an adagio by Alessandro Marcello, and it just sings and sings and sings in both hands. And then you have Mozart's F major sonata, Kochel 332. You will rarely hear such a clear and perfectly proportioned performance. And again, it just sings and it scintillates big time, especially in the finale. He doesn't take the first movement exposition repeat, but honestly, who cares? And there's also a wonderful performance of Beethoven's 32 variations in C minor. There's not one note or one phrase that falls under the table, but Wild's technique and his amazing accuracy never happen at the expense of power or dynamic build. It's an absolutely first-class performance. The centerpiece of this disc is Mili Balakirev's Piano Sonata in B minor. It's a really sprawling and very meaty work, and Earl Wild plays it quite well. It's one of the better performances on disc. There is some competition, but I think it's a really, really competitive performance. I especially like the little rhythmic lifts and the accents in the mazurka movement. They're really, really stylish and appropriate. But what was kind of a revelation to me was the 4 impromptus of Chopin, or I should say, were the 4 impromptus of Chopin. I should be grammatically correct here. They are on the brisk and unsentimental side, but they are so full of color, and Earl Wild's multi-leveled legato touch is a result mainly of sophisticated finger work with very, very discreet use of the sustain pedal. And last of all, Earl Wild's own delightful, entertaining, over-the-top and totally inimitable treatment of the Mexican hat dance. Who else would transcribe that for an encore but Earl Wild? So if you don't believe in miracles, all you have to do is get hold of this release and you will change your mind. This is Jed Disler, and you've been listening to The Piano Maven, your friendly podcast guide to piano recordings. Thank you for tuning in, and happy listening.